All right, so welcome. This is an attempt to put an audio to our video here. We've been having tremendous difficulty with the microphone. So this is at least the 5th attempt, but we have a little slideshow that we will go along with here. So in reading this in service of our common estate, first, the foundation. Now we'll push play. All right. A common estate. The Committee of Research for the Assembly. This is presentation number 1. We're going to pause it a second. In order, as it is left to us, to perfect the final steps required to complete reconstruction of our state, of our union. First things first, to discover our provenance. Provenance. In every case, let's look to the word provenance. Place of origin, derivation, the history of the ownership of an object, especially when documented or authenticated, used of artworks, antiques, and books. Of course, titles and deeds, records or documents authenticating such an object, or the history of its ownership, origin, source, place of origin, source, place and time of origin. So the history of ownership of a work. It's the history, the origin, the place, the source, the derivation. Fair enough? Now we know what provenance is, what we're looking for. I'm going to go back to our text here. To discover our provenance in every case, in order to occupy the same, to revive, giving new life to our first estate. Discovering the foundation that our house, its styles and conventions, form of government, is built, ordained, and established upon. And there it is manifest, lying in wait for us to discover in the documents. It is with no greater pleasure that I, Paul, no greater honor or joy to present as first fruits of our research committee the findings of our foundation that we the people are built, founded, standing upon. Looking to the foundational documents, most familiar 3 or 4, like the Declaration, the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, and of course the Bible, because there are so manifold intentional expressions of God and our trust in Him and His provision for us that are mentioned in these foundational documents, that there is a corresponding Bible obviously been introduced as God is introduced in trust and provision. His word, the scripture, is introduced. So they associated with the Geneva Bible, 1399, I believe. And each expression gives more fullness to the separation from, the leaving, and the union. What are we joining, cleaving to? There's the leaving and the cleaving. Separation for union. How to characterize, contextualize the relationship between God, the living God, and the United States and the government thereof, which we are. This question may be ascertained. The answer is available by the sum of specific references in harmony with themselves, of course, and the whole. And it is given us further specificity and official, outright, exact, specific disclosure in public proclamation, such as by act and deed, there would be no doubt remaining of our foundation. Our first example is a 1796 treaty with Morocco that assures the U.S. is not founded on the Christian religion. Here you have the text of Article 11 of the treaty. And as you can see, it begins, as the government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. Is this intriguing? So then, what exactly is the foundation that we have built upon? Here are the answers. The 1783 Thanksgiving for Peace. Whoops. And above all, that he hath been pleased to continue to us the light of the blessed gospel, and secured to us in the fullest extent the rights of conscience. That's heart. That's spiritual, in faith and worship. Remember, we're not founded on the Christian religion. Now we're giving specificity to exactly what we are founded upon. The gospel of conscience, the light of conscience and faith and worship, and to cause pure religion is this. Remember, James told us, pure religion is this, to help the widows and the orphans in the time of need. We are our brother's keeper, to love one another as he has loved us. Love our neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, the golden rule. And our purpose is disclosed as being rooted and founded on the gospel, to cause pure religion and virtue to flourish. It's a kingdom of the heart, remember? This associates everything now, because it is the benchmark, the key to all the documents. Here we go. This is our great commission, people. My peace I give to you. Go in my name, to give peace to all nations, and to fill the world with his glory. This done by the United States in Congress assembled in the year of the sovereignty and independence of the United States of America, the 8th. Thus it is given to us. We the people are the heirs of God, joint heirs with the Son, to assemble where two or more assemble, there am I in the midst. And where there's no foundation can any man lay than that which is laid. And upon this rock I will build my ecclesia, my assembly. And if two or more of you assemble, I am there. If two or more agree in touching anything on earth, it will be done by my Father in heaven. It is given to us, the heir, to assemble, agree, act at will. Both in the necessity, of course, when we see tyranny, lawlessness, war, poverty, dysfunction, and breach, and in a time of peace as well, according to nature, in the course of human events. The heir at full age may peaceably assume our rightful place and reform or replace as seems best to us for the greater good. I'm going to read this Thanksgiving for Peace. By the United States in Congress assembled, a proclamation. Whereas it has pleased the supreme ruler of all human events to dispose the hearts of the late belligerent powers, to put a period to the effusion of human blood by proclaiming a cessation of all hostilities by sea and land, and these United States are not only rescued from the dangers and calamities to which they have been so long exposed, but their freedom, sovereignty, and independence ultimately acknowledged. And whereas in the progress of a contest on which the most essential rights of human nature depended, the interposition of divine providence in our favor has been, come on, did he get rid of this? Crying out loud. Wonder if I can go over here. If I can go over here. It's brilliant. This is an awful setup after all, I guess. Okay, and whereas in the progress of a contest on which the most essential rights of human nature depended, the interposition of divine providence in our favor hath been most abundantly and most graciously manifested. And abundant and grace is manifest, see? And the citizens of these United States have every reason for praise and gratitude to the God of their salvation, the gospel of salvation. Impressed therefore with an exalted sense of the blessings by which we are surrounded and of our entire dependence, see the leave to cleave, our independence to full and complete dependence. See, we are independent and dependent on the Father, from whose goodness and bounty they are derived. The United States and Congress assembled do recommend it to the several states to set apart the second Thursday in December next as a day of public thanksgiving, that all the people may then assemble to celebrate with grateful hearts and united voices the praise of their supreme and all bountiful benefactor for his numberless favors and mercies, that he has been pleased to conduct us in safety through all the perils and vicissitudes of the war, that he hath given us unanimity and resolution to adhere to our just rights, that he hath raised up a powerful ally to assist us in supporting them, and hath so far crowned our united efforts with success, that in the course of this present year hostilities have ceased, and we are left in the undisputed possession of our liberties and independence, and of the fruit of our lands, and in the free participation of the treasures of the sea. That he hath prospered the labor of our husbandmen with plentiful harvests, and above all that he hath been pleased to continue to us the light of the blessed gospel, and secured to us in the fullest extent the rights of conscience and faith and worship. And while our hearts overflow with gratitude and our lips set forth the praises of our great Creator, that we also offer up fervent supplications that it may please him to pardon all our offenses, to give wisdom and unanimity to our public councils, to cement all our citizens in the bonds of affection, and to inspire them with an earnest regard for the national honor and interest, to enable them to improve the days of prosperity by every good work, and to be lovers of peace and tranquility, that he may be pleased to bless us in our husbandry, our commerce and navigation, our stewardship, our responsibility for our commonwealth estate, to smile upon our seminaries and means of education, to cause pure religion and virtue to flourish. And here is our great commission. Go, and in my name, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives, do I give. Go in my name to all nations, and to fill the world with his glory. This done by the United States in Congress assembled, we are not ashamed of the gospel. In this, the year of the sovereignty and independence of the United States of America, the 8th. So that's the presentation of the foundation of the government of the United States of America. Discovered and published and posted here during the Passover. Yes, go ahead.
Question I have, when they talked about the freedom of the seas or whatever, it made me think about how you talked about the land versus the sea, and how when they say that we're at war, it's like the sea. Can you explain that?
Well, there is the law. Yes, there's, of course, in the earthly estate we have, and there's the bond, the union of heaven and earth. So we have land, sea, and air that God has made us steward of. That's our estate. And of course, the air begins at terra firma, and there begins heaven, right? The birds are in the heavens.
Right.
So are we. You know, we're not down there on the ground, just the soles of our feet are. We're up here in the air.
Right.
Oh, but living there, of course. But of course, yeah, so there's land, sea, and air. There's also law of the land, law of the sea, law of the air. The law of the air kicks in when the air is of full age. Remember? So I'm going to go more into this, but I think I'm going to end this recording, okay? And then I'm going to produce a couple more, but I just want to keep this presentation short, and then talk about it more.
We'll just whet their appetite for something else coming.
That's big. I mean, it is impossible to overstate, literally. It is impossible to overstate the ramifications.
Right.
Of discovering our foundation. And there's toys, well, to me this is a little crafty, see? This is where you have to find the hints. Little things seem to be obscure. And then it's like, oh, wait a second, what is the question then? We're not founded on the Christian religion. What is the Christian religion? What's the point of these words? You'll see in the other treaties, is Christian is the administration of the Christian religion, and that on earth is called Christendom. Okay? That is an institution of man. This Christian religion is governed by the church. And of course the church was run by Rome until London broke off and started the Church of England. So then there was a twin power structure of this Christian religion, one being Catholic, which is universal. That's why it says for one nation. Universal, see? Because we are administering of the covenant. So,
right.
Yes, literally, that's why it's for the world. And it's all our faith. You'll find it in the Declaration alludes to, and I'll go into this I want to do one on the gospel, because now what are the implications, right? Because now we know the foundation. It says that no man can lay any foundation than that which is laid. And when the Son came with the testimony of the Father, this is my beloved Son, he received his kingdom, right? His estate. And that was in the time of peace, at the fullness of time, at the appointed time of the Father. And that was testified by the Father with witnesses, right? So there was no death in the family. It was at the appointed time. The heir was at full age. Okay? So no death had occurred in the family of God up until they killed the heir. And then what? His testament, his will, was ratified, the new, in blood by the death of the testator. And that is literally this Passover season. Well, this is what the Hebrew calendar observes. And then a month ago, they had what the Gregorian calendar observes. And those are different forms of Christianity, or the Hebrews. But anyway, this Christian religion, these words are claimed, see, by church administrations split between Rome and London. And then, of course, all the other incorporated entities doing business under this and calling themselves that, and the church. That's why we stayed away from all of those words in our declarations, because it was a complete separation. We are impelled to separation. And those political bonds were dissolved. So we took responsibility for our faith, right? And we proclaimed our faith is based on the gospel. See the difference? Now, as to land, sea, and air, that question, they said, yes, we're in possession. There's the air, law of the air, A-I-R and H-E-I-R. Same thing. Remember, there is one body. The government shall rest on his shoulders. The heavens is my throne, the earth is my footstool. Where's the house that you will build for me? But a living house, a new thing I am doing, who will perceive it? Right? A living house made without human hands, made of living stones, built on a solid rock, with the chief stone of the corner. That is the house and the temple. That is, right? That we are. Yeah, so I read that, and I'm going to stop this recording. So that's good news. That's good news. We are built on the gospel. Who would have thunk? All right, so this is a new recording with Paul and Laura. This is open question hour.
So can you talk about the Melchizedek priesthood?
Well, I told you I'd have to put that together.
Okay. Well, I mean, just touch on it, and then we can go into more detail later.
Here's a funny thing. These jokers, that even sounds like con. It's a con. So you go to Khan Academy to get conned. They're talking about democracy. Oh my God, we're going to lose our democracy, right? We want to say good riddance, good riddance. We don't have a democracy, don't want one. But they want to pound this into people's heads. But even in their own disclosure, this is Ideals of Democracy, lesson overview. And the teaching has nothing to do with democracy. This is the same thing that the word church did over the definition of ecclesia, the assembly. See that? Democracy. Wow. You will not see a democracy here. Look, they're stealing another definition, and they even admit it. The U.S. government is based on ideas of limited government, self-government, including natural rights from God. That means the people are the sovereign. That is called the Republican form of government. Republican, see?
Right.
And a social contract. Guess what the social contract is? The gospel. The union between God and man. And guess what? You haven't seen the word the demon crazy down here anywhere, because it's not. See? That's right there, not Democrat,
right,
or democracy. We form a republic. That is, the people are the sovereign. Democracy is communist mob rule.
All right.
Look at here, a nationalist. What's a nationalist? Hitler was a nationalist. Trump's a nationalist. What's a nationalist, right? It could be a guy that loves his nation, right? Doesn't forsake his national identity when the wind blows. But you can read about a nationalist movement. I thought what was interesting, you get down here to a cultural nationalist movement. Historically, often precedes a political movement, is an effort to rediscover, preserve, study, or reinvigorate the language or cultural traditions of a nation. You see, this is what we're doing right here. Brother Love's Travel and Salvation Show is a cultural nationalist movement for the nation of God, Israel, now called the United States of America, for the world. When we're operating in our for the world capacity, see, we assemble the United States. I think I even got another slide right here. Here's a good one to differentiate the nation and state. What's the difference between its nation and state? Because, well, we'll read it, but this goes to the significance of United States, right? If United States is just those two words and is left there undefined, it is not followed by of America. So we the people of the United States, now what is that, right? It must be the broadest definition. It must include all states, see? And that is why the states then adopted the style of state, and that is why we, after saying that we're a state, we addressed the king of this Great Britain as the state of Great Britain. See, we put ourselves on equal footing, but we all chose the word state. Nation, that doesn't separate us from nation. See, a state is a nation is a group of people. That's kindred. That's a people, tribe, right?
Yep.
With a common language, history, culture, and usually territory. Usually territory because they're named after the land they come from. That's why we're New Hampshireites and why he was a Nazarene and a Galilean. Depends what time of day it was, right?
Right.
So a state is an association of people. This is a group of people. They're associated by kindred, right? The bonds of nature.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't established a form of government. A state is an association of people characterized by formal institutions of government, including laws, permanent territorial boundaries, and sovereignty, political independence. A state may comprise one or more nations, see? That's what the United States is. It comprises one or more nations, see?
Mm-hmm.
As did the Roman Empire and Austria-Hungary. And a nation may be represented in or ruled by one or more, usually contiguous states. See that? A nation may be represented in one or more states, as in the early modern principalities of Germany. A state comprising or dominated by a single nation is often called a nation state. See that?
Yeah.
A state, a single state with a single nation, that's a single people, majority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is called a nation state. So that is why I say the United Nations has no business calling itself that, because that name by rights should belong to us and sort of held in reserve because we called ourselves the United States. So
right.
That's what's going on in this world, see? They took our mantle, knowing that it's built on the gospel, you see? It's our mantle. Who is the light bearer of the New Testament? It is only the faithful, and those that are of full age are now the responsible party, the chosen generation, the tag you're it. God says, I'm looking to you now.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and so many people don't know it.
no, they don't. Who would ever read a treaty from Tripoli, with Tripoli, right? But I get these hints like I did with that three parts of the world. Remember last time?
Yes.
His gospel. This is beautiful, huh? Here's the word gospel in the Greek, okay? It means good news. Remember, I make all things new. So everything related to new is good news.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes it all good, right?
Right.
And new.
Yep.
Even New England and New Hampshire and the New World. And the New Commandment and the New Testament. See? And all of that is in this Greek word right here. Let's look at this. Evangelion. Evangelion, 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 Evangelion. And there we are right there. There we are right there. There we are right there, the angles. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Right there.
that's interesting.
The Anglo. Oh, it's glorious, huh? Imagine that we would even call ourselves that through a language. But people did come down through history, and in one language or another ended up being called the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, the Danes, tribes. Oh, nations and states and kingdoms. It all comes down to us in the gospel. Isn't that glorious?
It is. It's pretty amazing.
Angle. You Anglion. You Anglion. I am one. I am one. I'm an angle. English. There's the Iroquois Confederacy that we exterminated after the war. They are west of the Hudson, see? The Iroquois Confederacy.
Oh, okay.
Sullivan County is named for John Sullivan, General John Sullivan, who was appointed by George Washington after the war to go pay back these fellers because they had gone in league with the British and were attacking our villages all along our frontiers while we're trying to fight the British, see? So once we got our freedom on this end, we sent a crew in here to take care of them, and it broke them. It broke the Confederacy. But that was a confederacy, just like we started in 13 states, a confederacy. And there was an Algonquin confederacy over here, the Wabanaki. This was all Dakina, which means our land. That was the Wabanaki Confederacy. See?
Interesting.
Yeah. Equity. We're in trust law, see? Equity. And he will judge everyone in equity. Everyone for his works, right? We should understand righteousness and judgment and equity. The gospel is equity. It's trust.
Yep. Trust is critical. Actually, it just reminded me, in God we trust. That's our motto.
Yeah. Well, that says it all too, because it says who we trust. That's according to Scripture. He says, "Put your trust in me. In Him, the Son, I will place my trust." So the way God said that, we can say the same words. In Him, I will place my trust. In Him, I place my trust. We're using the exact same words God used, and it puts us in faith. And it also puts us in a pre and superior union than any institution of man coming along to contract with us. See? We're not subject. We can't be violated in our conscience. right, to contract with an entity that is less than us, and especially that would desire to harm us, right? That's nonsense. We got to just turn the tables around and tell these jokers, corporate actors, who's the boss. And then just have no more to do with them. Tell them we're here, express our terms and conditions, and what we expect out of them. And other than that, we're just mind our business and keep spreading the gospel.
Yeah. Well, it sure makes things look clearer when you bring in all these things. So I'm really glad you're doing this.
Yeah, I am too. Look at this. Here's the whole fraud right here. The whole fraud is right here.
Mm-hmm.
Right in Proverbs. If they say, "Come with us, let us lie in wait for blood. Let us ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive, and whole, like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us. We will have one purse. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths, for their feet run to evil, and they haste to shed blood. For in vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird, but these men lie in wait for their own blood. They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. This whole entire system, the birth certificate, debt, money, infant decedent, estate fraud, false religion, false God system is all right there. It's like they took those words and said, hey, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
And thankfully, anybody with this law written on their hearts and who loves the truth would never go after those enticements, right?
Right.
Yeah. But when I see those words like that, abundant grace, in that proclamation, they put so many words in there. But remember, abundant entrance will be ministered to you into the eternal kingdom. The ministry of grace and peace, the law of peace.
Right.
The whole system comes into clarity because our system is not rule, it's serve. The elder serves the younger. That's our government.
Right.
And everything
What
else.
I just thought of in that capacity? Like England serving the U.S. They were the beginning, the elder.
That's right. And we were called dependent. They were looking out for us. And we even called them, this is in regards to statehood, but we called them our parent state and recognized them as our parent state.
Oh, huh.
In the way we did, it's kind of a unique relationship, but it literally is between Manasseh and Ephraim. And one of us is first and one of us is last. And there's no question we're last. So we're Ephraim.
Mhm.
But the twin sticks are joined in one hand anyway.
What does that mean?
Well, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor lawgiver between his knees until Shiloh come.
Mhm.
So the twin sticks of the birthright of the firstborn goes to Ephraim, who is the last,
Right.
the son of Joseph. And the scepter is in Judah. So there's Judea and Samaria. There's Judah and Israel, because Ephraim is over Israel. So when the kingdom divided, the Ephraim was the king of Israel. See?
Oh.
And Judah was king of Judah.
Or Jerusalem.
At Jerusalem, yeah, it's Judea and Samaria. Samaria was the 10 tribes of Israel.
Right.
The northern tribes. North and south is significant too. Right? We're being invaded by the south right now.
Right.
We had a civil war between the north and south. So see, north and south matters. East and west matters.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's a scripture that says that in the last days, like Israel was dispersed, and Israel would remember who they were.
Well, there's a ton of references to the dispersion, they call it, the diaspora, which is a scattering, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there was the scattering of Israel, and there was the scattering of Judah. Now, they call the 10 tribes the lost tribes because they went into Babylon, and presumably the world never saw or heard from them again. But we know that the Jews, so-called, right, the people of Jerusalem in the land of Judah, under the rule of the children of David, uh, uh, they went into captivity in Assyria, right,
Okay.
and Persia, under Media and Persia. And Cyrus released them in Isaiah 45. Many of them returned back to their land, right?
Right.
And began rebuilding the wall and rebuilding the temple. So
Right.
there is no question that some of the people there may be descendants of Judah or Benjamin, or possibly Levi,
Right.
right? But, for the most part, they're Arabs. The,
Oh.
after Jerusalem, how many times people would have run away, right? But then you had the Maccabees and ones like that would fight and fight for their land, even against Rome. But
Right.
after the temple and everything was destroyed, uh, there was such a remnant there. they kept leaving and going to different places, but there, and then and then it was the whole place was taken over by the Mohammedans there.
Right, Muslims.
Yeah. So those people up until the 20th century were probably some Hebrews and mostly Arabs. And they were living in relative peace until Rothschild came along, see? And the Zionists, their Masonic agenda. And they're all one, they're all one. They're one with the Jesuits and the Freemasons and the Illuminati and all of the knighthoods and secret societies are all, whether it's Jew and Talmud or the Mystery Babylon, which they tell you the Talmud is Babylon. So it came out of there. Well, Israel went into Babylon. There is Arzareth, there is testimony in 2nd Esdras that they did not all stay there, see? So, but that they decided amongst themselves, enough is enough. They are not going to this land of barbarians and be dominated. So they agreed amongst themselves to split and go to the land promised and obey God. Do the right thing finally. And it says it took them a 1.5 year journey to get there. And it says, now, so that would have been 586 or so. No, that would have been sometime around 700 BC. So we know that they could have left there in basically assuming they all didn't go south, like to Africa. That don't make sense. We see that they could have gone up north through the Pass of Israel up towards Asia, through the Pass of Israel and the Caucasus Mountains. See? The Pass of Israel got its name from the ancient times. So what if Israel came out of Babylon and came north into Europe and Asia? And so if he came one way, and then they said, who is these white people coming out of the mountains? Because in Europe and in Russia, Caucasian means white. So they call it the Caucasus. We call it the White Mountains. And again, guess where they are? In New Hampshire. We have the Caucasus, the White Mountains. I'm sure every country has them, right? But they called them white. This Israel coming down out of the mountains. And that's where we got the name Caucasian.
Interesting.
There's other names all over Europe and Spain, Iberia, and Danube, and even the British has that Berit in it, which is the covenant. People of the covenant. So the prophecies all came true. See, man moved across the earth as he was foretold, and there was the table of nations that brought us from Adam to Noah to Eber to Abraham to Isaac and Israel until Shiloh come. And unto him should be the gathering of his people, right? And he came and he said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men to me. So he was saying, I'm Shiloh. And in another way, he said it because Shiloh means owner of the vineyard. And so he gave us the parables of the vineyard to tell us who he was and what was going to happen to him. That the servants were going to kill the heir and steal the vineyard. They did it right then to him. But he was also telling us they would do it to us in the end also. That was January 6, 2021. They killed the heir and stole the vineyard. That's why they called it Stop the Steal. That's what it was called. January 6 was Stop the Steal, if you're on the MAGA side.
Right.
Kill the heir. They did. Steal. They did.
Yep.
And they called it Stop the Steal. And they didn't. That's how real time this present truth is.
And it's still mind-boggling. There's still people in jail.
Yeah, that's such a crime. They should all be let out, and all of the congressmen should be locked up. Every single one.
Yeah.
Trump, every living president, every living senator, congressman.
Yeah, should you see to vote that through Congress? Kidding. You'd have huge fight in that. And I don't know if you want to touch on current things, but I saw this thing and they were basically saying that they think that Biden is trying to push for war so that he can stay in office.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any doubt they're going to cause a major catastrophe or chaos before the election.
Right.
To declare every type of emergency they can and give every justification they can pull out of their hats to create an emergency like they had 2020.
Right.
See, that gave them an excuse to do everything and blame it on COVID. So they changed all the rules without the legislature.
Yep.
So that's how they stole it, see? They did that without authority. So it's null. It's a nullity. They are without authority, and that's why they post lawlessness. That's the age we're in. That's the no man knows the day or the hour. Well, you certainly know the season we're in now. We just entered lawlessness.
Right.
So you start putting them together, right? You had the sign of the woman. You had January 6th, which was steal the heir, kill the heir, steal the vineyard. You see, Trump is being paraded as the king of Israel. That's why he's dragged into courts and on a witch hunt, and they're throwing tomatoes at him and going to give him a crown of thorns someday probably. But the hysterical Trump derangement syndrome, see, that's the priest tearing their clothes because of the heretic. You know, he threatens our democracy. But what does he offer in place of it? Honestly, it is such a scam. Because what did he come right out and say? He started a company, and what did he call it? Truth Social. So there's your social. See?
Oh, like Social Security.
Social. Social is communist. Social is democratic. You know, National Socialist. Social. It's everything social, like you said. Whatever you said, and everything social. Social media. Yeah, it's socialism, literally. All things social.
Think about that. Social Security is
socialism.
Yeah, socialism.
It's a tyranny of the state. That's why, and they're not calling it that. They're calling it democracy. So we got to stop thinking democracy is a good word.
Right.
That has anything to do with us or our form of government. It is the supplanter, the usurper, the imposter, the conqueror, the one that overthrew us by subterfuge, and undermining and trickery. Literally, by changing definitions of words.
Right.
Jews.
It's true, they did that. Changing of words creates confusion and puts people, like, I forgot who was saying to me, like when they have all these, I don't even know all the different, they say there's all these different genders, and people are saying, no, I'm non-binary, whatever, but they have this stuff, and they were saying how this young guy was just yelling at this older gentleman who, because they didn't use the right pronouns or whatever, and he was like, I'm really sorry, like I'm trying. And what it does is, by changing these definitions, it's putting people off guard to make them feel like they're failing, when in fact it's male or female.
They're changing the rules of grammar.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're trying to let people make them up.
Yeah.
So not only you and I don't have the right to the rules of our own language, which we learned as children,
right,
but they want to new rule, make it up. No, I don't agree to that. I agree that the gospel entitles us to run the race according to the rules, that we may obtain the prize.
Yeah.
Man, we have a promise, literally, for every friggin' statement of fraud they can throw at us to try to keep us in their system. There is a scripture. For every temptation, there is the way of escape. And now that he's given us the absolute rock, the benchmark, the critical association, what is the true origin source out of all these freaking things calling themselves governments? What did we do in this country? What was so great about us? Why did we go to first in the world status as soon as we were born? right?
Right.
Became the envy of the world. It's because we were a city set on a hill. We were the light. That's why you see when they built in that swamp, the temple, the people's house, uh, they built it on Beacon Hill. Beacon.
I see.
We're a light to the world and a light to the Gentiles, see?
Yeah, sometimes I don't feel like we're the biggest light.
Well, we're the light, not our government. The government has run amok. Obviously, has been overthrown by the prince of this world, and in our name, he has done and wreaked havoc all over the earth. But in our name, but serving their interests,
Yeah.
the devils, the Jews, the papists,
Yeah.
the Elites, the rulers, governors, gods of this world. But those are literally the ones referred to as the sons of the kingdom. When he says, "Woe to the sons of the kingdom,"
Oh, he's talking about the people that usurp the kingdom.
they're acting in the power, so they got it coming.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that we proclaimed it, I'm just so excited. You know, they hint about stuff and they hint here and there, and it's almost like they don't want to cast their pearls before swine, or they don't want to be endorsing a religion, so they don't wear their faith on their sleeve,
Mm-hmm.
but in a way they do. And that was what was called devout.
It was called what?
Devout.
Oh.
Devout. Big difference between religious and devout. But our whole gospel, our whole kingdom, our whole government is the government. That's why we did the words we used, was because there is one government, there is one people, there is one body, there is one world, there is one nation. They're all beneficiaries of the gospel. For God so loved the world.
Right.
But as long as the heir remains a child, and I'm going to take you from all nations. I'm going to take you from all nations, from where I've scattered you. And I'm going to bring you to your own land, a new land. See? He brought us here from the north, south, east, and west. He brought us to the new world, a place to call our own.
Mm-hmm.
I know I probably sound like a hypocrite because I'm a white man, but I'm white because of the gospel, because of the blood, right? There ain't no man that's gonna look at me and call me white. You kidding me right now? I've been in Florida for 6 months. I'm what do you got? You got flesh tones, right? You got ruddy. What's ruddy? Ruddy shows blood in the face. That shows it shows red in the face. That's like blushing. Who can blush? This is an interesting question. They probably won't ask it on Johnny Carson. Yeah, but who can blush? See, a red man can't even blush because he's already red. And obviously, the black fella who consents to be called black, that's stranger to me than being called nigger, because at least nigger in your native tongue meant king.
Oh, really?
Yes. They'd rather be called black. So now, see, you got flesh tones like tan, brown, black. Oh, and then what do they call them? Lightened, darkened by the sun. Those are flesh tones. Those are all the hues of man, right? So they created a hue man.
Oh, interesting.
They needed something to do with the afterbirth that they left with every time a child was born. So they found a way to profit off it. Isn't that funny? The people probably never asked, what do you do with that? But of course, we don't know how long they've been keeping them. Because it could have been like normal for people just to clamp it. Once all the pulsing stops, after a few hours or so, the signs of life will leave the placenta. So that means it's no longer transferring the energy in supplements to our immune system. Once it's done doing its job after like a few hours, I guess, they would clamp it just like they clamp the cord anyway. So we already know after a few days or so, that's going to dry up and fall off, and you're going to have a belly button. All by nature, all without a cut, see?
I see.
So they cause an unnecessary act of mayhem on us. And then larceny, because they cut a piece of a limb off us, an organ. It's called the fetal maternal organ, and it's called a limb. So that's what they hacked off us and took. They took. That's what they did, the violence they did to an infant and his estate, his property. Because even if you cut my leg off, it's still my leg.
Right.
They stole it. And then they birthed it. Then they created a whole persona and a trust and a whole fucking legal fiction bullshit money system out of it. And all based on the perversion or the truth of the gospel. Literally, this world is either... Oh, so Christendom is literally being a Luciferian regime. Christendom is a Luciferian regime. We have a proof that Constantine started the church. So that's the origin of the church. So why do people... Church is what the living God in the person of his son started out of his own mouth when he said, I will build mine. Where is the house you will build for me? Heaven is my throne, earth is my footstool. Right?
Right.
So now we've got the place where God puts his feet is the earth. And he's charged us to tend it. The earth is the Lord's and all the fullness thereof. That means he still owns it. Yeah. He gave it to his son. And then they killed his son. Before they did, He left his will. He expressed his will. So when the testator dies, his will is ratified. And there ain't nobody can do nothing about it. That's obligation of contracts.
Interesting.
It's the law.
Mhm.
Yeah. So whosoever will on the earth should be able to just confess their faith and be free.
Right.
Sovereign, left alone. Tax-free, free.
Yeah. We're definitely not free.
Well, now you know how to orient things. The trick that's been played on us, but the perfection that our fathers placed there for us to find. If we ever forgot it, we've certainly forgotten it. These kids don't know anything about God. That makes me feel old.
That makes you what?
Feel old.
Oh.
I see how detached these kids are from any notion of God. Their whole world is social. Surface bullshit, you know? Well, I think I'm going to call it a night. There's an article. Article of clothing. There were articles of Confederation, but then there were articles in the Constitution too. And there were amendments. But yeah, I think I'm gonna pull the plug on this.
Okay. Well, I think we covered some pretty cool stuff. So, thanks, Paul.
Stop recording. Thank you. Yeah.